Hi, good evening. I'm Fami Berry and welcome to another conversation with me. Today, we're talking about the infection known as Giardiasis. Giardiasis is an intestinal infection caused by a protozoan known as Giardia lamblia. It is the common cause of parasitic GIT diseases and is transmitted via the fecal oral route, often through ingestion of contaminated food, water, and via person to person. A brief history. It was first observed in 1681 by Anthony de Leeuwenhoek. It is recognized as the significant cause of GIT diseases, especially in poor sanitation areas. Under signs and symptoms, we talk about nausea, fatigue, weight loss, bloating, watery or foul-smelling diarrhea. Under diagnosis, we talk about stool microscopy, we talk about stool antigen test, we talk about PCR test. The indicator to note under diagnosis are the presence of cysts, trophozoites in stool, positive antigens, and molecular tests. Under clinical presentation, we talk about abdominal tenderness, we talk about signs of dehydration, which is dry mucous lining, that's dryness of the mouth. We also talk about weight loss, that is in chronic cases. Under differential diagnosis, we are talking about diseases or infections that mimic giardiasis. And here we talk about the irritable bowel disease. We also talk about the amoebiasis. We also talk about lactose intolerance, and we also talk about bacterial gastroenteritis. So, irritable bowel disease or irritable bowel syndrome, it lacks infectious exposure and fever. Amoebiasis, on the other hand, can cause bloody stool, which in giardiasis it may or may not. For lactose intolerance, it can cause chronic symptoms but no infectious exposure. Under etiology, we're talking about the causes and the risk factors of giardiasis. For causes, we talk about infection by Giardia lamblia, which is the protozoan responsible for giardiasis. Under risk factors, we talk about drinking untreated water, poor hygiene, and poor sanitation. Under treatment, the first line of drug is metronidazole. Other line of treatment for giardiasis are tinidazole. Under supportive care, we talk about hydration, either by oral or by IV route, and we also talk about nutritional support. Under prevention, we talk about boiling and filtering of drinking water. We also talk about practicing of good hygiene, and we also talk about to avoid consuming untreated water. For prognosis, it's generally important and good with treatment. Without therapy, the infection may become chronic. It may lead to malabsorption, especially in children. Reinfection may occur if you have been exposed or re-exposed to giardiasis and the causes. So it's important to note that even after treating giardiasis, these prevention and supportive cares are strictly followed to ensure that you do not have to retreat or fall back into reinfection via giardiasis. Thank you so much for listening. I remain Fami Berry. See you in the next video. Under signs and symptoms, we talk about nausea, fatigue, weight loss, bloating, and even watery or foul-smelling diarrhea. These symptoms usually appear 1 to 3 weeks after exposure. Under diagnosis, we talk about stool microscopy, stool antigen test, and PCR tests. Indicators to note during these tests are the presence of cysts, trophozoites in stool, positive antigens, and even molecular tests. Under clinical presentation, they present as abdominal tenderness, especially in the upper region, signs of dehydration, weight loss in chronic cases. Under signs of dehydration, we are talking about dry mucosa and then even skin turgor. Under differential diagnosis, we are highlighting on illness and sicknesses that mimic giardiasis. Here we're talking about the irritable bowel disease, which is the IBS. We also talk about amoebiasis. We also talk about lactose intolerance, and we also talk about bacterial gastroenteritis. For clues, we talk about that giardiasis has a history of contaminated water exposure, unlike these mimicking infections. For prognosis, it's important that you note that it is very good with treatment, and without therapy, the infection may become very chronic. And in some cases, it may lead to malabsorption, especially in children. Reinfection is possible, especially in endemic areas and also unsanitary environments. It's important to know that your hygiene is very important, because these can get you exposed to giardiasis. Thank you so much for listening. I remain Famiberry. See you in the next video.